Hey everyone, welcome to GameTalk, a new channel I have started up to share my opinions on video games with you, and I hope to hear or read about yours as well. With this channel, I hope to engage with everyone who has the same passion as I do about video games, and hopefully incorporate your views in the content we create, but more on that later. Let's start with the video, my top 5 PS4 games. What is the best weapon to take down enormous, violent dinosaur machines? Bow and arrow? Hey, I guess it works. When Guerrilla announced their new game at E3, it was a huge surprise for everyone. Seeing the new direction the developer was heading for after only working on the Killzone series for so long was a huge change, and their first foray into this game looked great. It looked and felt as if Guerrilla had been making third-person action-adventure games forever. This game looks incredible. Seeing huge dinosaur-like machines roaming around this gorgeous world looks like something out of a Jurassic Park movie. Seeing a Thunderjaw fighting NPCs and a tall neck walking around looks terrifying and majestic. The gameplay is fairly simple, with the main focus on bow and arrow combat. Horizon does a great job of making sure the gameplay does not feel monotonous, by making you approach each enemy with a plan, like what traps to set, finding the weak point of the enemy, and what components to separate from them. The story in Horizon really had me hooked from the start. I wanted to know where these monster machines came from, how the civilization reached this point, and who Aloy is. The game does a great job of keeping you in mystery, making you want to keep playing to find out more. The story asks many questions and manages to answer most of them, while teasing and leaving some unanswered for future installments. What really made this game for me though was the environment this is all set in. The world looks beautiful. It's filled with color, which is surprising from a kind of post-apocalyptic game. The world is filled with things to do, side quests, challenges, and collectibles, which also didn't feel like a chore to me and turned out to be a pretty good platinum trophy to get as well.
Esto va a estar más fácil de lo que esperaba, ¿eh?
You're gonna have to do better than that, pal.
Yes, it's the return of our swashbuckling hero Nathan Drake, who goes out on another exciting adventure, this time involving paperwork, filing, and playing video games.
Is that it?
Poor guy. The Uncharted games have been one of my favorite series ever. I love the story-driven narrative, the big blockbuster movie tone, the puzzle solving, which there is quite a bit of, the new characters, the return of familiar ones, and the crazy over-the-top movie set pieces that you actually play through, by the way. The game nails the feeling of watching a big-budget action-adventure movie, and like those movies, we see the game take Nathan Drake and crew to different locations that are both visually stunning and a treat to play in. I remember when I first played the game, there were many times where I just stopped to look at the setting. Gameplay, in my opinion, has always been the weak point in the Uncharted games in the past, and I would say that is still the case for it in this game. It's still the same cover and shoot system with melee combat, and it has definitely improved from past games, but it is still not as great or tight as it could be. And maybe it's just me, but I found that the stealth segments can get really frustrating. But these are minor complaints about a very polished game. The story for me makes up for the gameplay though. Seeing Nathan Drake struggling with his new life and being plunged back into the life he left behind is a great one. And like with all other Uncharted games before, the performances just take this game to another level.
See you again, friend. But, what you doing here?
Just visiting old friends, I guess.
Well, you better get out of here.
Finally, the much-awaited sequel, or prequel, I guess, to Red Dead Redemption had come. And boy was this game big. The amount of detail and things to do here was just mind-blowing. The game looks gorgeous and has a long story with some great cast of characters. The gameplay is similar to previous Rockstar games, with some tweaks. One of them being the greet or antagonize options to interact with anyone, which can lead to some funny dialogue. But a lot of the times I found myself by accident aiming a gun at someone who I wanted to talk to, which ruined some of the random missions for me. Apart from that, the combat is still the same. Pick a weapon from the weapon wheel and take cover and shoot. We also see the return of the Deadeye system from the last game with some improvements. Like the Uncharted series, I've always felt that the gameplay has been the weakest part in most games by Rockstar. apart from the vehicle driving or horse riding in this case. But this problem never manages to hold back any of their games as well. The story of Red Dead Redemption 2 was good, but it did take some time for me to get invested in, as it has a pretty slow pace in the beginning, probably because they had a bunch of new characters to introduce. But I really didn't care about Arthur or any of the other characters until maybe the end of the game. I mean, there was one part later on in the game where something happens in the story with one of the characters that I didn't even recognize or know existed. But none of this manages to hold the game back story-wise, because this game has some great missions. I mean, that last mission alone was probably one of the most badass moments I've ever made in video games. This game is astounding. I mean, it's crazy the amount of things you can do in it. I often found myself sidetracked from the main story to handle other small things because there's so much to do. I still come back to the game, and I'm amazed to find small things like the townspeople remembering that you caused trouble in the area. Oh, and that antagonize option is just great.
Village idiot. Did your face get swapped for your ass at birth?
Quit this, all right?
Your wife must have to close her eyes real tight.
Okay, I think I'll be going now.
Number 2 is Spider-Man.
Don't forget the hyphen between spider and man.
Yes, it's everyone's favorite webhead swinging his way back into video games after hitting quite a few bumps on the way. I was really excited for this game and was looking forward to a good game to scratch the superhero itch I have had ever since the Arkham series ended, and Spider-Man didn't disappoint. I mean, just look at it. The game is filled with these superhero moments that make everything just seem much more epic. The feeling of diving off rooftops and swinging around doing all sorts of tricks in a populated and accurately recreated New York City never gets old, and the fact that Spider-Man takes selfies and interacts with random people is just a great touch of making the city feel alive.
Wow, Spider-Man!
The combat does take some time getting used to, especially if you are accustomed to the rhythmic combat from the Batman games. But it is still a great change by focusing more on air combat with acrobatic finishers, which feels more like Spider-Man's style. The story and voice acting are stellar, with great performances and a really good Spider-Man story with amazing build-up. This game feels like a movie. It's filled with twists and turns and plenty of cinematic moments that you would come to expect from an MCU film. The game also offers a huge variety of suits for Spider-Man to wear, and different gadgets to use in combat. But I really didn't find myself using these much, because I was just having more fun beating up on enemies. The game also has probably one of the best photo modes in video games in my opinion. There, fixed it. More puddles. It also helped make my Spider-Man look like a sadistic murderer. Wow. There were some moments that I felt really slowed down the pace of the game, specifically the Mary Jane parts. Overall though, this game is amazing. It really nails the feeling of being Spider-Man, and swinging around in a city has never felt better. My number 1 PS4 game is no surprise to anyone, I'm sure. It's a new journey for the nicest and gentlest guy in video games, Kratos. Yeah, nope. I had never been a big God of War fan before. I mean, I played some of the games, but never felt an attachment to the series. But when I saw the demo of this game at E3 2016, I was hooked. The game looked gorgeous. It looked so different from the previous games and seemed to be going in a completely different direction character-wise. When I finally got my hands on it, it exceeded my expectations. The game started off on such a somber note, with such a simple mission, and throughout the game we watched that mission branch out and become this grand adventure, which felt very organically done. Playing through it, watching the story unravel along the way was so satisfying. Every character in the game added to the story meaningfully. They even had their own arc of growth, which complemented Kratos and Atreus' journey. Speaking of character growth, Kratos in this game was outstanding. Watching him evolve from a one-tone, angry, destroy-everything, revenge-filled character to someone struggling with being a father and protecting his son from new threats was so refreshing. Gameplay had probably been the biggest change of the series, switching from a simple but satisfying button-mashing combat system in the previous games to a much slower but more methodical and challenging system which I love. Also, the look and feeling of summoning the Leviathan axe never gets old and feels so damn good. Everything about this game to me was perfect, from the performances to the setting, the background score, puzzles, even the side missions are great. I never wanted to stop playing and never wanted the story to finish, which just tells me how much I liked it.
This is great!
Thank you for watching this video. It really means a lot. I know times are tough for everyone right now, so I hope to create a channel with new content every week to help entertain you and keep myself busy as well. I know the content right now is rough, but I promise you it will improve. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I want to make these videos to have a discussion with you about your opinions as well as mine. So let me know what your top 5 PlayStation 4 games are in the comments below, and I'll reply to them as soon as I can. Thank you again, stay safe, and wash those hands.